Yeah.
All right. Well, chimed in. Welcome back to Next Stage Podcast, everyone.
Oh, yeah.
For those of you who are listening, it's been a while since we've done a one-on-one episode.
It has.
Me and my best friend here, we started this venture together, and we do the guests. We have guests on to come and talk, but, you know, sometimes we just need to, you know, have our meeting of the minds on here together
purge,
live, you know.
If you will, of our own.
It's like you're often here and you're there as like producing, but like I kind of miss you, man.
I miss you too.
It's not the same. It's not the same when I'm gazing into your eyes.
It's you know, I had a wedding that I was at last weekend, so
I hope it was important.
Yeah, it was nice. It was a very nice ceremony. It was good.
That's what everybody says when they hate the wedding.
No, it was a great wedding. They actually had a band. It wasn't a DJ. So.
Oh yeah, live band, nice.
Live band, and it was like all like, you know, like early '60s. R&B stuff. It was really awesome, actually. So
that always gets me going, man. I kind of have this like unofficial rule that I like to enforce at times when there's DJs playing to say I only dance for a live band.
Yeah.
When Shannon, you know, was trying to get me, oh, come and dance. I'm like, no, only dance for a live band.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes because I just don't want to dance. But
I never want to dance. I don't dance for anything.
Yeah.
You know, that's my rule, is I don't dance at all.
But I feel like it's my little thing of like, you know, when people, you know, are environmentally conscious, they do certain things, they don't use certain products or, you know, recycle plastic, this and that.
I just don't dance.
I'm like, I want to support live rock bands, so I'm not going to dance for the DJs who are taking this away from us, man.
Yeah.
It's my form of protest.
Oh, I think it's a
It's
very
musical protest. It's like, you got to get a live band if you want me to dance.
You should like
share my moves.
You should like wear something that like, you know, something around your neck. It's just like, you know, the reason I'm not dancing is because I'm protesting this, you know.
I think I could word it a little better, like, don't dance for DJs.
Yeah. I think we might need to make some shirts about that.
We should.
Let's start a movement here.
Don't dance for DJs.
Don't dance for DJs.
I think it's been started.
Should we wear this to Christian and Eliza's wedding?
We'll have it like under our suits and like tear it off.
I don't know if they'll like that. Because I believe it will be a DJ.
Yeah, there's a time and place to get on your soapbox. Somebody's wedding is not it.
Exactly.
That's just like, I am way too self-important for my own good.
But these shirts will be on sale.
Yeah. We need to make Don't Dance for DJs shirts. I think so. Maybe we'll move this a little closer. I don't know if it's too far away. We want to make sure you hear your beautiful, smooth voice.
All right. Ooh,
Can't you hear me talking?
Hey.
So, this is going to be a rock and roll episode. We realized that we want to talk about the genre of rock and roll music because, hey, that's what we like. We love rock and roll. That's what got both of us into music. That's what we're, you know, excited by. That's the particular genre that we really identify with. Not to say we don't like other music. There's all sorts of music I can get into besides that. But that's the main meat of what we, you know, connect on in music. So this is going to be a rock-themed episode, but we're going to start off with some music news.
There's some rock relevant news.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is rock relevant.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's some interesting things going on in the music world that we've heard about.
Yeah, I'd say so. This week, let's see, we got Jimmy Page gave cocaine to a minor.
Just this
allegedly,
week?
Yes, just this week.
Was it his girlfriend?
I think it was. What's his neighbor that he had the feud with?
Oh yeah.
It was
I don't
his
know.
son.
Mickey Mantle, right?
Oh man,
Mickey
that hurts me
Mantle's
as a Yankee fan, man. All right, you can't bring.
Okay.
Can't bring
No, his
Mickey
name was
into
like Robert somebody or Bob somebody.
Dude,
Bobby
we
Smiles.
just talked about this.
We
last
were.
time. Yeah.
They had some kind of like loudness feud where he was playing Jimmy Page or Led Zeppelin music at full blast, like
apparently
making mad
Jimmy
about
Page
putting a pull in.
He couldn't do cocaine in, you know, the quietness that he wanted.
Yeah, he needs silence for his drug take.
No.
Aleister Crowley was almost being summoned to his apartment or his whatever he's living in.
It's like
not an apartment.
Yeah, it's like
a cottage,
huge mansion
estate. He was almost going to get Aleister Crowley to appear at his estate when this one-hit wonder from the 90s decided to start blasting music to disturb his peace and quiet of meditation.
Yeah. Well, anyways, it wasn't.
So he was giving.
It wasn't that.
It wasn't Aleister Crowley's ghost that he was giving cocaine to.
No, it was John Bonham's son.
Oh.
Yeah, Jason.
Was he just confused? Did he think like Bonzo, you're back. Here you go, buddy. I've been saving this for you.
I'm not sure when this was, but Jason Bonham was 16 years old. So the story goes that...
Well, how old is he now? Just subtract it and you get where it was.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know how old he is.
There's a laptop in front of me, but I don't know.
I'm going to guess he's like 46. Maybe this was 30 years ago.
Yeah, maybe. All right.
I don't know. He plays with, what's his name? Sammy Hagar. Now.
Does he?
Yeah, Circle. And Chickenfoot. I think he's in Chickenfoot as well.
Chickenfoot, yeah.
Anyway.
Just those great rock and roll bands. All right, so basically he, I don't know, they were at a show, I guess, and...
Was it a Greta Van Fleet show?
No. This was on the Howard Stern show that this came out, not the incident, but I guess he claims that Page introduced him to cocaine when he was 16 years old. We got called into his room, Bonham said, and there was a woman on the floor with a collar on, meowing, and he had his grinder thing, and he turned it over, and he went, "Here you go." And I went, "Thanks." He's like, "You've done this before, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course I have." So he handed it over, and I just did all of it. And he went, "Just like your father."
Oh.
You know, that was supposed to be for all of us. So
what about the cat lady? Did she get anything?
Yeah, I don't know, man. They're weird guys, man. You know,
or was she just there as a prop? It's like if you're gonna do cocaine with Jimmy Page, there has to be a lady with a collar on,
just
somewhere
meowing
in the picture. Yeah, cat lady.
Very strange. I didn't read that until just now. That was I kind of skipped through that, but yeah. So that broke.
And did he like it? Does he say?
So here's the thing. That broke like earlier in the week, and then like a couple days later, he came out and he said that he unconditionally retracts all derogatory and defamatory comments relating to Mr. J. Page. So he came back and he said it didn't happen.
That sounds like a lawyer told him to say that.
So why would you make that story up? I mean, right down to the meowing lady on the ground.
Yeah, like, it's pretty specific.
Pretty descriptive, you know?
If I was going to make up a story about doing cocaine with Jimmy Page, I wouldn't have thought of that detail.
No.
Like meowing lady?
Unless he's a really good liar, you know?
Yeah, I mean, unless he's just some kind of sociopath who like makes up stories to seem cooler. But I think if you're John Bonham's son, you don't have to try to seem cool.
No,
you don't need attention.
You got those genes, you know.
He's probably trying to like detract from like, yeah, I'm not my father, stop comparing me, sort of thing. Just like Jacob Dylan and Bob Dylan, you know. I would imagine that you don't want to court references to the thing your parent who's people assume is the only reason anyone cares about you. Yeah. Which probably isn't true.
No.
But this kind of echoes the Keith Richards, I snorted my daddy's ashes. Oh, wait, Pirates of the Caribbean's canceling me? No, I didn't. Like,
very true.
You know,
Okay,
it seems like one of those, you can't say everything that's true in the public sphere.
But basically, he completely took it all back, and he said it's all untrue. Mr. J. Page, as he refers to him. Yeah, which is a little weird.
James Marshall Page.
But he says,
what is his middle name? I wonder.
I don't know, man.
It's Marshall now.
Marshall Mathers. He's apologizing, you know. So to me, it seems like, you know, Jimmy got a hold of him. He's like, "Are you kidding me? You dropped this story? Really? Like,
I'm about to release my memoirs. Come on."
It's like, not only did you do all of our coke that night, now you're
lying about
it. Yep. So that was something. Who knows what actually happened? We can all have our speculation that it did happen. And
yeah, I'm gonna assume that it did.
I mean, 16. You should be able
12.
to. Yeah, exactly.
You know,
it's not like he was like, you know.
I think Anthony Kiedis had him beat on that. I think he was even younger when his
like 13 or something.
Yeah, although that was heroin, I think. His dad's like, "Don't do that. I'm going out with my friends to go get more drugs."
So well, I'm going to a bridge downtown.
Like laying on mattresses to shoot up. Forget home. I'm a rich and famous.
Screw
I like
you,
to lie
Dad.
on the
I'm gonna go live under a bridge.
I wonder about that. Like, why was laying under a bridge with Latino gangsters guarding the bridge gate, whatever, laying on mattresses? Why did he want to do heroin there? He was not like scrounging for money at that point in his career. Was it because he felt like, well, at least I know I'm protected here? Like what was the appeal there?
I don't know. I think he's.
I guess that's why drugs don't make good decisions. Yeah, that's just pretty much tells you everything you need to know.
Stay off drugs, everyone. Okay, especially just don't hang out with Jimmy Page ever.
No, especially when there's meowing cat ladies around.
Yeah,
because you never know what's going to be handed to you.
I think
you never know what you're going to have to deny.
Whoever
in the future.
neighbor is in this whole feud, we forgot his name.
Yeah,
he should reintroduce that. Maybe get a meowing cat lady to walk over on Jimmy's property.
Start taking her for a walk. What if she actually poops on his lawn? And he's like,
whoa, taking your role way too seriously. Okay,
there's nothing serious about that.
No, there's not.
Maybe a little bit.
So we have another story about the whole Woodstock fiasco.
Not to be confused with Lupe Fiasco.
Yeah, well, you know what? It's starting to seem like it's like a fire fest about to happen here.
Are we getting punked? Where's Ashton?
I don't know, man. This guy, Michael Lang, who was like a big part of the initial, 1969 Woodstock. He was one of the big promoters and setting up the festival. I think he carried through to like the 99 Woodstock and all that. But there's two Woodstocks that are happening. There's one that's actually at Bethel Woods, and then there's Michael Lang's festival that's at Watkins Glen, which is not anywhere near. I think it might be somewhat close, but that was a festival that was, I think, a year after Woodstock.
Okay.
Back in 70.
But that was a pretty big festival,
It
right?
was, some argue it was bigger than Woodstock.
Yeah.
It was the band, the Allman Brothers, and the Grateful Dead. So, I mean,
that's some
pretty awesome. My
quintessential.
dad was there too, actually. So,
oh, nice.
Yeah. So that was a great festival too, but I don't understand why there's two, number one, and that makes me believe that this Michael Lang guy is just a douchebag.
Do you think he's just trying to get back at whoever's doing the real one? Be like, I started Woodstock. I will do my own thing.
Well, I think we're seeing his true colors of it all. I think he's just always been trying to make a buck.
Well, you have to consider that the original Woodstock was pretty much, in logistical terms, a miserable failure.
Oh, yeah.
It was iconically and
It's
culturally
always been a miserable. Every year that they've tried to redo it, it's been, an utter disaster.
Yeah, so many things. They couldn't get people there. They had to fly people in on helicopters, all the rain. They almost electrocuted 500,000 people.
It's the original Fire Fest.
Yeah. Maybe that's the thing about festivals. The more risky they are, the more exciting
Billy
they are.
McFarlane, when he gets out of jail, you should talk to Michael Lang and they could set something up.
Oh, they will. Firestock. It's going to be on a barge out in the middle of the Pacific.
Bermuda's Triangle. Yeah.
Yes, there we go.
Yeah.
Bermuda Triangle Fest. That's what it's got to be.
It has to.
They're going to get with those big sand shooters to build a fake island in the middle of the Pacific. Refurbish the Titanic to take everybody there. Jimmy Page is going to be handing out cocaine at the door.
16 or older.
Yeah, you can't be over 16 to go on this show, is what happens, actually. Oh, that sounds beautiful.
So, the lineups...
I think we should run that. We've just got the idea already.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll probably do it better.
Just so we're in agreement about that. Just got to make a fake festival, a lot of hype, and then just scam everybody and get out.
Yeah, that's the true way to run a festival.
That's really why we're doing this podcast, is just to scam people out of fake festival money.
But yeah, you look at the one that Michael Lang's running at Watkins Glen. You got Miley Cyrus. There's some good bands. You got Dead and Company.
Okay.
You got Raconteurs. You got Lumineers. Robert Plant and the Sensational Space Shifters.
Okay. Not pretentious at all.
No. But then you have Akon and Jay-Z, Imagine Dragons. It's like those. Yeah, it's like, what are you doing? But at least he's not doing it on the sacred ground of Woodstock anymore. You know? Take it to Watkins Glen, dude.
Sounds like,
but
he's
he's obviously trying to make a buck. You wouldn't bring in all these people. But I guess there's some speculation that this might not even happen. So I guess tickets were supposed to go on sale on Monday.
Got some Fire Fest stank on it.
Yeah, it does. And they're there's some talks that it might be canceled. But
canceled because of people don't want to go, or he can't procure the artists, or because
I don't know. The Black Keys have dropped out, and they say that it's through a scheduling conflict. But I don't know. Maybe
that's a pretty big date to forget. I was like, oh, sorry, we're actually
Woodstock.
We'd love to come and play that, but
I think you would make plans to cancel your other gig if you were gonna play Woodstock.
But we don't know if it's a gig. It might be oh, we've got dinner with our wives, and we can't get out of this.
Could be.
We'll never live it down.
Yeah. But yeah, anyways, there's you can make your decision on what you think's going on, but I think. If I'm a true Woodstock fan and I want to experience it like it was in '69, I think Woodstock's their festival. It's actually, I don't know who's running it names or anything, but it's got like the Doobie Brothers and Santana and
some of the original.
I mean, Santana's the other one too, but I think.
Oh, Santana's doing both.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
He wants.
He better not take any acid.
Yeah.
For the Festival of Festivals. It's one of my favorite interviews. He's talking about that, how he wasn't supposed to go on stage because but had to because the helicopters couldn't get artists there, and he had taken acid, and like he's like, that's why I'm making all those ugly faces. My guitar was like a snake that wouldn't stand still, and like completely not even expecting to play. Had taken acid, and they're like, you got to go play. Like what?
Yeah, no, and that was one of the
iconic
best.
Performance.
Oh my god, Soul Sacrifice.
But if you watch those videos back, you can see him like.
Oh yeah,
like,
it's insane.
He's definitely not like having a good time.
He's like battling feedback. Like that was like what was affecting him. Like he was just like constantly.
Yeah, you see his volume
constantly screwing with his volume knob. Like he just kept getting like feedback. Yeah,
and everyone's like drumming on the fences and like whatever pieces of whatever they can pick up and smack together. It's
but
iconic.
It's a shame that like it's getting this watered down, I guess. If I was somebody that was at that festival, I don't know what I would think about. The Watkins Glen thing is fine. Michael Lang, you can go do whatever you want, but let's just keep it like real. I think what's the festival? Mountain Jam. I think they're actually having it at the Woodstock Bethel Woods this year, and that looks like a killer lineup. That's jam bands.
More in the
very
spirit.
Organic, very like exactly what Woodstock was initially, like what it was back in the day. Go to that. Yeah, go to that. Don't go to these. I mean, maybe the Woodstock 50 at Woodstock will be good. I'm not going to speculate about that, but Watkins Glen seems like it's just a waste of your time. Don't do it. I think it's going to be like a fire fest. And
I guess it's hard with something like that because when the original thing happened, it was so spontaneous. Like festivals weren't even really a thing. Like
no, and now
big
you can't.
Bands outdoors. It was like they invented this sort of by accident, and now it's just trying to like cash in on and try to capture a magic. But the magic, whatever was there, wasn't because anyone engineered it. Right. It just happened because it happened, and that's like you can't recapture
festivals.
That. Yeah, the Festival of Festivals. So
yeah, that's it for news, pretty much. Yeah.
So let's get into our lists. We had an idea to do a rock themed episode, talk about rock music, and within that, we decided let's make top 5 lists of top 5
big high fidelity guys here.
Yeah. What? What does that
Maybe
mean?
not. Maybe just me. There's a movie, High Fidelity.
I've seen part of it, but I've never actually seen it all.
It's a big theme is top 5.
Oh.
He does top 5 everything. So
I think I saw part of it, and I know, is that the movie where there's some iconic scene where he's holding a radio in the rain, and it's to a girl that he likes or something. Yeah, I didn't make it that far.
Actually,
in the
no.
movie.
Maybe. No? I don't know. Why am I not thinking of it? Is that another John Cusack movie?
I don't know. He was in a lot of them. Anyway, enough about him. Let's talk about us.
Yes.
So,
our top 5.
We decided to do top 5 essential rock songs. What essential means? Open to interpretation, right? We talked about it last night, brainstormed, and decided we're going to do our top 5 essential rock songs. This is incredibly hard, as you can imagine, because any band that I'm thinking, I want to include one of their songs, I'm like, well, which one?
Yeah.
There's so many, and it's like rock and roll and rock itself spans so much territory that rock and roll is even a little bit different than just rock, because it's like the roll has the groove and just straight rock could be without the groove, and there's so many bands that typify a certain pinnacle within the development that it's hard to say what is it exactly, what really defines it. So we didn't have any clear parameters around this, is it necessarily our favorite songs? Maybe not, but they're ones that we included on our list because we think they're essential for some reason. Okay, so this doesn't mean that whatever we put down is the only 5 songs we want to hear for eternity. It just means they made our list.
This
isn't
a Desert Island playlist.
No, it's not a Desert Island playlist. So,
although I wouldn't mind it. Yeah.
What approach did you take for formulating your list? Because I have my approach. I'll tell after.
I took mine as rock riffs, the riffs that really brought me close to rock and roll. Like that really introduced me, and I thank my dad for showing me most of these songs. And it just the songs that really like just captivated me, like really just drew me in and made me want to learn more about these bands and learn more about rock and roll and play music, play guitar, try to write riffs that are like this. Yeah. And they still stick in my mind to this day.
Were you already playing guitar when you heard these things, or did this get you into playing guitar?
I was already playing guitar. Yeah. Yeah, when my dad showed me these, because he saw I was taking an interest in guitar.
Yeah. If you like that, listen to this.
I was playing like, pop punk stuff and playing in bands, playing, I thought I was cool listening.
Like 182?
Well, yeah, and then I had the whole other side of me where I was listening to like the Casualties and, Minor Threat and like, you know, like really, I was a true punk,
Oh,
like, yeah. Joke.
Did Darby Crash burn you with a cigarette in your wrist?
Yeah.
So here you can't be a true punk unless that happens.
Yeah, it was, I don't know. It was a phase. Let's just put it that way. An important phase.
Well, punk is, to me, a distillation of the original rock and roll energy.
Sure,
so
and I love punk
sense.
music to this day. But, my dad saw me listening to that stuff, and he's like, you should really, check out some of these bands.
Yeah, upgrade
if you want to, listen to some great musicians. And so, yeah, that's kind of how I put my list together, was the rock riffage.
Okay.
The riffs
so like
that really
the guitar bass
got me,
riffs, the things that were like intrinsic, I took the energy approach because it's like, to me, rock and roll is an energy, and it's been reinvented in many ways throughout the decades from its, inception up until current times, I guess, sort of.
We'll talk about
but,
that later.
We'll get to that. There's a segue there. But I felt like I was capturing what to me were essential rock and roll songs. Not necessarily that are my favorite, but there's aspects of them that capture multiple facets of what I consider like the rock and roll energy, itself, beyond just a particular sound, a particular style, a particular band, because it's so hard to define. But there's something that draws me to a lot of different bands that you wouldn't necessarily think are similar. Based on the sound alone, but there's something deep in there that I say, that makes me want to get up and move my body and do something different, So that's the approach I took. Okay. So who wants to do number 5 first?
Okay, we'll start at number 5.
Yeah, we gotta go count up to number 1. You don't start at number 1 and downgrade from there.
Right, yeah. Makes sense.
So I kept this list secret from you.
Yeah, you don't know mine either, man.
Yeah.
Probably. Hopefully, we don't have any similar songs again. Same songs.
I don't think so. I don't know. Well, there's probably some bands that are similar. I would guess, but I would be very surprised if we chose the same band, same song. But we did that with Snowblind, so
we did.
I guess anything's possible. You first, me first. Should we flip a coin? Is there a coin around here? Wait, we have to. No coins. All right, I'll go first. My number 5, "Drain You" by Nirvana.
Oh,
because that energy is undeniable, but also there is such a melodic quality to the verses that is almost the most like upbeat or like positive or happy sounding Nirvana song from the straight like inception of the first thing you hear, because it starts straight with the vocals and guitar. One baby to another, say like it all comes in at once. Then da 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 boom. Yeah. Then the growl comes and brings the hammer down, and then you got this really cool, almost like it harkens back to some echoings of 60s rock in there. The way it's kind of sing-songy and back and forth, and then the most epic moment for the dynamics building, which I love rock and roll for the dynamics, because they have this very light poppy chorus verse thing, and then the chorus is a little more minor, it goes down, but then there's that breakdown where they go from like almost nothing to they do that suck push and pull of like then nothing, playing with dynamics, the theater of rock and roll of loud and quiet, and then to that final build and just It's like a freight train.
Oh, yeah.
It just comes out of that into the same melody that the original verse was, but with this ferocity that wasn't there before. So to me, even though this is later in the game of the development of rock and roll, and you could argue not quite rock and roll because it doesn't have the blues backbeat, but it has more roll to it than a lot of Nirvana songs, while still having the rock grit, ferocity in there. And so that's why I chose Drain You to be my number 5, because, you know,
It's one of my favorite Nirvana songs.
I won't rate the band in that way because I would put them much higher up, but, you know, just for the way I'm building this list, it's
appropriate.
They had a lot of rock and roll energy to draw from and do better than before them, that it's like, yeah, of course the first rock and roll won't be that explosive, so you can't really credit them with starting, but like they, in that song, took the melody and the energy and put them together in a beautiful way and dynamic. So that's my number 5 song.
Okay. I like it. I like it a lot. Definitely.
I like it
a lot. One of my favorite Nirvana songs, for sure. My number 5 is Black Sabbath's Black Sabbath.
How more black can you get?
Oh, man. That riff was, I think, one of the first... I think it was the first Black Sabbath song that I ever heard, which is fitting because it's their first song on their debut album, and that's the way my dad heard it, and that he explained his story of how he heard it and with his friends and how they had never heard anything like that in 1970, you know, like just this rainstorm and bells in the background, and then boom, wound down. Like, it's just so, oh my God, it's amazing.
Menacing.
Yeah. And it's got that, you know, devil's tritone, you know, like the band. Yeah, it was like banned from, I don't know the whole backstory on that, but there is some speculation that, like, you know, it was like a satanic tritone, like an interval of the devil, you know.
Yeah, it was banned from like religious music or something.
Yeah,
right? Like people that were composing for like church hymns and stuff couldn't use those intervals.
Yeah, Jerry Lee Lewis couldn't use Jimmy Swagger, no.
Cousins, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, that was an incredible introduction to Black Sabbath and rock and roll for me, just hearing that haunting riff, you know, and just like the way the song builds, and just that whole album was amazing too.
Dynamics again too.
Yeah. I mean, but just, I don't know, it was different than what I was listening to at the time, where everything was just very quick and upbeat and in your face immediately, whereas this had like a storyline to it where like you hear like rain and you hear the bells in the distance, and it's like building you up for something, you know, and then you hear that riff. It's just like,
it's frightening.
Oh my God. Yeah. It changed me. So I really think that was the best. That was my number 5.
Oh yeah, that's a powerful riff though.
Yeah.
Very powerful. It seems like when you hear it that you've almost heard it before. Like it seems like
well, you probably have, because it's that tritone.
Yeah. Da 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 da. Ludwig van.
Yeah.
Okay, that
so
brings
that's
me
my 5.
Solid 5. Here's my number 4. Get Off My Cloud by the Rolling Stones.
Okay.
Because
hey,
you two's a crowd on my cloud. Get off my cloud. It has that right out the get go, like get on your feet and start dancing. The drum beat is very repetitive. That repeats throughout it. The riff, like it's a very like simply composed song, but there's this up energy that makes you just want to like get up and do this. And he's singing all about like sort of an angsty feeling of whatever he's doing, he keeps getting like bummed out by somebody else trying to tell him, hey, like keep your music down. It's like the telephone's ringing. Hi, it's me. Who is it there on the line? It's 3 a.m. Don't you people ever want to go to bed just because you feel so good? Do you have to drive me out of my head? And he's like, get off of my cloud. Hey, you get off of my cloud. It's like all these instances where he's just trying to enjoy his life and get some kind of bummer out of it, and then sick and tired of putting up with this, decided to take a drive downtown, goes down, then falls asleep, and then ends up waking up with a bunch of parking tickets on his car. Like, even here I can't even get some peace. Why are you sleeping in the park? I don't know.
Yeah.
But in the morning, the parking tickets were just like flags stuck on my windscreen. But he has this very dismissive attitude towards it, which to me is like the essence of rock and roll energy of yeah, I'm kind of down and out and having some problems in my life and meeting a dead end everywhere I go, but I still have this forget you attitude. That's my censoring myself, just like CeeLo Green did. Forget you! Fill in the blanks. But he's saying, even in spite of that, there's this celebratory, you get off of my cloud. Don't mess with me. I'm good, and you're bringing your negative energy, and it's got that upbeat feel, which to me is the essence of rock and roll, and it just moves good, and that's got a lot of roll to it. It just feels like a sunny day to me.
Yeah.
So, not necessarily my favorite Rolling Stones song. Probably pretty close up there, though. Not necessarily the most hard rocking thing, but it melds the elements of melody and energy in a way that kind of Drain You, but in much earlier days, that does something for me that not many songs do. There's a unique feeling. It's almost like a smell in the way it hits me. It's not quite definable as any one element. So that's my number 5, again, on the energy of rock and roll. That was more the feel-good, uplifting energy and the sort of rebellious angst energy combined into one. That's number 4.
Yeah. You said 5.
Oh, I did? Oh.
We're doing
downgrading them. All mine are number 5 on my list because I don't believe in favoritism.
Hey. Yeah.
I'll let the people decide.
Okay. Well, I have for my number 4 or 5, whichever one it is.
5, number 2.
Yeah, there we go.
My second 5, my 5B.
Mine is Frankenstein by Edgar Winter Group. So this is, I don't know, man. Is there a better instrumental rock song out there? I mean, it's crazy, the musicianship and how good he was at, his keytar, one of the first to play that out there. Yeah, he was one of the...
Edgar Winter played the keytar?
I believe he played the keytar at some shows. That was a...
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was a big synthesizer guy, and he was incredible. I mean, obviously, we all know his brother was pretty good, too.
Johnny Winter. Did they do stuff together ever?
That's a good question. I don't know.
They did. The lights were very dim.
I think...
They're albinos.
I think they did do an album together. I could be wrong, but yeah, this was a song that was, like I said, most of these songs were a similar story of my dad showing me these songs and introducing me to the rock and roll history, and that's why they're still so important in my life as a rock and roll guitar player. And you still draw from these things, But yeah, when I heard that, and it at that time, I was very into melodic vocal patterns, and for me to sit through, a long instrumental song and not get bored was a big thing. There was a lot going on. There was a lot of breaks and stops and a lot of dynamic stuff that was going on in it that I didn't know about, and that definitely intrigued me.
But it still returns to that main hook, that riff.
Yeah. Oh, and there's, it was just incredible musicians that played on that, and yeah,
it's a very fat riff.
It is. Yeah. Dun, 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 dun. I mean, it just doesn't quit. As soon as you hear that, you're getting amped up. That could be another energy kind of.
Yeah. Well, that's another one that seems like you've already heard it before in a way. Yeah. When you hear it, it's it just seems natural.
Yeah.
My throat's so dry. I don't know.
Me
why.
too.
like there's something I can't clear.
Vapes,
Yeah.
Who knows with this propylene glycol or whatever it is.
That's good for you. It makes your teeth whiter.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
The more you know, everyone.
Yeah, so that's what all whitening toothpaste has that in it.
Okay.
Yeah. No.
You had me. Hook, line, and sinker.
I'm actually a propylene glycol salesman. Would you like to buy a barrel?
You got the hat for it.
Yeah. Some pipe clock.
Pipe clock.
Okay. My number 3. This one was hard to choose which song by this band because there are so many, and here we go again.
Getting emotional.
It's breaking me down. There are so many songs by this band that typify to me the essence of rock and roll and why I got into it. The energy and even like the roots that are in there. This band is AC/DC.
Okay.
So very hard to narrow down which AC/DC song I wanted to include on this because in a lot of ways, stylistically, their music, especially Angus's guitar playing and things, echoes a lot of Chuck Berry. And they just took it to a higher level of volume and intensity and speed, but there was a lot of that classic early rock flavor in there in his playing, and he even does like a modified duck walk thing, that he hops around on stage. But to me, this band typifies the core energy of rock and roll, and what better song than Let There Be Rock? Because it's got the history of rock and roll, like, in the lyrics.
Oh, yeah.
In the beginning, back in 1955, man didn't know about rock and roll show and all that jive. Like, he goes through the development of rock and roll sort of in this loose lyrical narrative, but it's this very down, beat for the verse that's pretty sparse, and then it's like the theater kicks in, the theater of rock and roll, which I think there's a lot of theater in it. It's like, let there be drums, and there were drums. Let there be light, and there was light.
Yep.
Let there be sound, there was sound. Let there be guitar, let there be rock. And then that guitar comes in, it's like that. The chorus is almost the riff of the guitar. He just announces, let there be rock, and then the band takes over, and that's when that, like, and then it goes back down, ding, 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 to that. So there's the dynamics in there. He's telling a history of rock and roll and showing, to me, or the band is showing the dynamic power of rock and roll, where when you're in the verse and you're kind of sitting down and he's like singing, you're waiting for that kick when the guitar comes in. Like, that's what the rock is. That's the rock and roll. And that Phil Rudd on the drums, his cigarette burn just the whole time. Doesn't need to crash, just keeping that backbeat going. So the energy of rock and roll is really typified. Yes, it's a little bit corny and cheesy that it's called Let There Be Rock, like it's biblical or something, but like, isn't that the theater of rock and roll? We need that cheese factor. We have to believe in that they're selling something greater than what it is, because it's part of that suspension of disbelief. They're like, I want to believe in you more than anything because you're taking me somewhere else. And we know there's a little bit of, a campiness to it, but
yeah.
It's AC/DC, so I can't.
It's a good one.
And he's the perpetual boy child. It seems like that guitar is like leading him around stage. Like he caught like a snake, or whatever. He doesn't know what to do with, and it's just pulling him around. His little schoolboy outfit that he slowly strips down as it goes. It's just. The guitar's almost taller than him. He's holding it. It's like he got a hold of something he shouldn't.
He was one of the best.
Angus Young. That's why I play an SG, by the way.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. That, and I like the way it feels, but I was into AC/DC. I'm like, that's a cool looking guitar. I got to get one of those. Ooh, $700? No. Used Samick? $200? Okay, I can do that. Knock off.
Nice.
So Let There Be Rock.
I like it.
Says it.
My number 3 is probably one that you could give a little backstory on as well, because you introduced me to the backstory. Dazed and Confused.
Ooh.
I mean, so I heard it as Zeppelin. John Paul Jones. Boom, 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 boom. Yeah. You
gotta have that pedal squeak in there. You can hear the kick pedal creaking.
That was a constant throughout that whole album. You can hear it on,
but especially in that one.
Yeah. Yeah, man. This.
Don't edit out the imperfections.
Yeah. No, I mean that was perfect. I think. So the original artist was Jake Holmes.
Yeah.
Who was, you might have a better backstory on him than I do, but
kind of
he was like a San
artist.
Francisco beatnik kind of kid, right? Like,
yeah.
You know what I find funny about this is that, so he wrote this song initially, and then Jimmy Page went to the Yardbirds, and then the Yardbirds played it, and
Tried to play it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, played it, and Jimmy Page did his thing, and okay, something's different with that guy in this band. Not really gonna work out.
Little breakaway scenario developing.
Oh yeah, and it did, obviously, and then you get Led Zeppelin's version, which was just the way it should always have been played, and that is what.
The only reason we're talking about Jake Holmes right now.
Exactly, which is why I find it funny that, like, you know, this song was, you know, he wrote it in 1967, and he tried to sue Led Zeppelin in 2010.
Took him that long.
So, yeah, like, you didn't know, like, you knew about this, man. You knew that they were playing this, like, you know. So I think they, like, settled that it was, like, inspired by Jake Holmes.
Right.
It's like, okay.
Yeah, well, who knows how much Jake Holmes, what did he do after? Who knows? Maybe he wasn't, like, even involved in music. He might have been painting houses for all we know. Just not
Holmes
even in the
painting
world.
and co. You know? Yeah.
Holmes paints homes.
That's it. Oh my God, I'm seeing that. No.
But you're right. It's like the song itself, okay, was whatever he wrote, but it didn't have the energy.
No.
And what Led Zeppelin went and did with it is why they're essential.
Yeah.
Even though it's a cover, technically, the arrangement's been messed with and changed a bit. It's not a straight cover by any means.
No.
But you see,
that
like,
breakaway with a do 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 do.
Yeah.
That wasn't. Yeah.
That's one of the most iconic rock and roll moments too. When it breaks back in, because it's got the do 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 do,
and it's all building and building and building,
and then it goes bam bam bam, like that.
Yeah.
Come in is like. Ah.
And then just for it to go back to that like slow moving down, 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 down. Like it's such a classic riff.
That feels like you're like walking in cement. Like
And I think it's like, you know, the timing of all that. Like it must have been so cool to like see these bands first come out because it was such a different, unique sound.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's something that we all are like yearning for now is like our version of that. You know, I think like we got it with Nirvana was like a fresh you know, breath of fresh air in the 90s, but we haven't really seen that like iconic moment of something so different, and we'll get into that later. But
well, it's sort of like that frenetic energy that made rock and roll interesting and dangerous was because it was unpredictable.
Yeah.
And with the advent of like modern recording and shows, a lot of shows are run like you're filming a sitcom or something where everything's orchestrated out and they might have background sounds that are being cued and this and that and the lights. Everything's so controlled that like the chaotic atmosphere gets like edited out of it all. And it's like you're left with something that like you're supposed to by the numbers say is rock, but like it doesn't have that like danger. Like something could go wrong at any moment, you know?
yeah, but I mean that was just such another haunting riff.
Yeah.
I'm finding a common thread here of my riffs are actually pretty haunting and like but
well, that speaks to what
like,
you value in the rock music.
It really does. It's always inspired me to kind of write in that way.
Well, you're a powerful like riff writer, and you're like you know how to compose a song around a riff and like write hooky guitar parts and stuff. And so that's like obviously a key element of what attracts you to rock and roll. So it's like that's
and your energy.
Yeah,
it's definitely what works for you too, man.
It does something.
Yeah, seen you rolling around the floor on a couple gigs of ours.
Angus Young, my man. He's definitely a huge inspiration on me.
Oh yeah.
Okay, my number 2 follows your one pretty well. Communication Breakdown.
Oh,
Led Zeppelin.
Okay.
Because to me, that song just does not quit. It just comes out with this hard, and then it rolls. It's like tripping over itself to try to get ahead of itself the whole time. They got this. It's like, what's going on? This song just blasts out of the gate. And it doesn't quit. And then the communication breakdown, the chorus is a communication breakdown, always the same. You have this like do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. It's like climbing bass runs. It's like
John Paul Jones is pretty good.
Yeah, you're ready to like get out by the time the chorus is done. And it drops down just enough to down. And then a blistering guitar solo in there.
Oh, yeah.
They trimmed all the fat off of that song. When you get that thing, what is it, like 3 minutes or something?
Yeah.
Maybe about, which I love when a song fits in that pocket. It's like, get in, get out, and get on with it. It's like they just smash you with that song. But again, it's still a very like energetic, frenzied type of song. Like it makes me just want to go nuts. But like piercing, like shredding guitar tones on the solo, like that high range of Robert Plant wailing over it, like the throbbing bass, the crushing drums, like all of it is like just rock and roll on steroids to me, and it's like very compact package.
Absolutely, that's one of my favorites. That was high energy, man. That's it.
And that's to me almost like proto punk, you know. It's like da 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 da. It's like Ramones, you know. It could be it or whatever, you know. It's like Sex Pistols, Ramones. Any of those, the Clash could have taken like that just like striking the guitar. He wasn't playing the guitar; he was striking it.
Fast rhythm, yeah.
And that like that ferocity. So that to me is like amps that rock and roll energy up, and it's like a very pure packet of it.
I dig that.
So that's my number 2.
Okay, my number 2. 21st century schizoid, man. King Crimson, dude.
Wow.
Yeah. Probably one of my favorite albums of all time, The Court of the Crimson King. Yeah. That riff, another haunting one, being followed by a sax, like together, that dang, 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 down, down, down. It's just got that, like, oh, it was an epic song. It's got obviously some like political, you know, anti-Vietnam kind of stuff into it.
Really? I didn't know that's what that was about.
Yeah, politicians, funeral pyre, you know, like it's.
Oh, I never put together the words in that.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a strike at the times there, you know, which made it probably more likable in that 1969 when it released was definitely a high talking point. But yeah, man, that riff to start that album, you know, I mean, that album goes through waves, you know, it's just like calms down and, you know, Epitaph, and then it goes back to Court of Crimson King. It's just great drumming, great everything. I mean, Robert Fripp, genius.
Yeah.
We both share a love for King Crimson.
Oh, yeah.
You definitely, I think you're a more later years guy, right?
Yeah, I like the 80s stuff a lot.
Which was awesome too. That's like such a cool thing about Adrian Belew. Like, he had such an incredible range of vocals too. That I mean, they always had like good singers throughout their projects, but
well, it's just different styles, you know.
Yeah.
Like the earlier stuff had a little more like operatic quality to it sometimes, whereas like his with Adrian Belew, it was almost more like Talking Heads if they were better musicians.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, they did some really cool rhythm changes and stuff. But yeah, that riff, man.
Yeah.
It's such a badass riff.
Yeah, you're definitely a riff guy. You know, that shows.
Such a riff guy. Yeah. That's why when you said like, you know, your top 5 like rock and roll thing, I'm like, I'm gonna do my riffs.
Well, that's what's great about it is because the idea of rock and roll means so many different things to different people. Yeah. You know, to me, it's an energy thing.
Right.
And it's like if someone's getting me off on that energy, like I'll call it rock and roll no matter what their sound arrangement sounds like, you know. Whereas riffs are a huge part of it. Most people respond to that. You know, it's like, why do you think Smoke on the Water is always rated as one of the best rock and roll songs? Ain't because it's got great lyrics or something. It's like that dun 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 dun. Any like idiot can like headbang to that, like
they played a festival with Frank Zappa and someone caught on fire and whatnot.
Shot a flare gun into the some dummy with a flare gun burned the. Oh no, is it some stupid?
Yeah,
is it some stupid with a flare gun? Like burn the place to the ground. Yeah, it's all about. It was like some throwaway song in their minds too. They thought like, oh, they want a hit for the album. I don't know. I guess we'll write this in 5 minutes. But the riffs are what draw people in. You know?
Yeah, and Deep Purple definitely. They had some pretty amazing riffage.
Yeah,
and Lazy. Yeah, there was some really good.
I'm not as versed with them as I should be. Like I know like their hits, and like I know I've tried to listen to like full albums here and there, but never
Richie
really.
Blackmore was an incredible guitar player. But then he went and like did like this like Renaissance thing. It's really weird.
Yeah,
I don't
really.
Know. He seems like kind of a dick. I don't know, man. Like I don't know. I just kind of like lost interest in them. Like they had some good stuff though. So yeah, that was my number 2, 21st Century Schizoid. I think Kanye has actually sampled that too. So. you know, if you're a Kanye fan out there,
I wouldn't be surprised I could hear that down, 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 like being like
or
a kind of like rap chorus or something.
Maybe he did Core of the Crimson King. I don't know. Maybe it was Schizoid Man. Yeah, I think it was Schizoid.
I could hear him doing that.
I don't know what song it was, but I've heard a couple.
Well, he's a 21st century Schizoid Man. Poop the scoop, you know?
Poop of the
Scoop and poop. And people are buying it.
Yep.
So, joke's on you, people who bought that song. All right. Brings me to my number one. My number one rock and roll song. Capturing the essence of rock and roll. To me, the energy, the raw, unbridled energy of rock and roll, especially given the time and place of when it was happening. Nothing to compare it to. There was no, pre-existing heavy music of any sort, and I don't necessarily consider this heavy, but the way the delivery is done, the vocals on this, to me, are right up there with what Bon Scott was doing, what Axl Rose was doing, what Kurt Cobain was doing, that raw vocal, and it's Long Tall Sally by Little Richard.
Okay.
He kills it on that song.
I did not see. Okay. All right.
And it's celebrating the whole essence of rock and roll to me, of like the chorus, have me some fun tonight, yeah, like having me some fun tonight. Isn't the whole point of it all? Yeah. We're gonna have some fun tonight, yeah. But like that long tall Sally, she's built for speed, got everything that Uncle John need, oh baby. It's like, that's crazy for that time. Like, there was no heavy music, nothing. No. That energy is like he's bursting out of his own skin to scream at the microphone. And when you see some of these live videos, like he's standing at the piano and there's no microphone in sight. Like it's somewhere on the stage or up above, and he's just yelling this out and like sweating, and like the performance aspect, like that guy to me was rock and roll, and that energy is just punk as any other band that did punk thereafter.
Absolutely. I think he's definitely, you could call him the father of rock and roll. You could call him the main influencer of rock and roll. Him, Chuck Berry, Jerry Lee Lewis too. I mean, but Little Richard there was some frenetic energy and passion in his vocals that weren't there in any of those other guys. Yeah. Elvis popularized it because he was the white boy who could make this music palatable to the mainstream. Chuck Berry innovated a lot, had his licks and his riffs and had his own like sort of brand of music, but he didn't have the vocal delivery. He was a little more talk singing, had clever lyrics. A lot of his lyrical cleverness, AC/DC was taking where there's innuendos in there hidden. It's like couldn't unfasten her safety belt. Can I sit next to you, girl? Like there's the lyrical play, but the passionate delivery that gets me in a rock and roll vocal, Little Richard had like beyond anybody else. And going to that falsetto, woo, like that. The Beatles stole that. That's what they were trying to do. They were trying to imitate Little Richard, and they couldn't quite do it. So they just said, just bob our heads instead and try to, he had a fiery passion. Almost equal to the hate you have for the Beatles.
Nothing will equal that. It's not them, it's the mystique around them. I want to be very clear about that. The masquerade of the band who was Brand.
For a later episode.
For another episode. But yeah, Long Tall Sally, it's got the energy, and it's got the lyrical themes of like somebody who's trying to sneak around and get a little extra on the side, and he's saying, I'm going out to play music, but like, I saw you with, I'm going to tell Aunt Sally about that. It's like someone's cheating around, and I wouldn't necessarily say that's a good quality and ill repute, but having some fun tonight is like the reprise and the chorus, and it's like, no matter what, rock and roll to me is about having some fun, and that song captures it.
I like it. My number one is my favorite rock and roll song of all time. I think I've figured this out like today, just that it has to be, and in my mind, it's like the greatest rock and roll intro, for sure. In my mind, Can't You Hear Me Knocking by the Rolling Stones.
Oh, that's why you were saying that.
Yeah. Can't you hear me talking? Yeah. So, just the intro guitar, like, is there anything cooler than that? Like, for me, when I hear that, it just amps me up. Like, I'm ready to go. Like, you play that, before we go out to a party or go to a bar or something, or you're doing something, that is the song to listen to for me. Yeah. It's just,
it kind of like walks down into the riff and then settles.
It's just rock and roll, man. Like, I don't know, the lyrics, super cool. You get a sweet jam in there. You get like one of the best sax players, Bobby Keys, just laying it down. I mean, Billy Preston played organ on that, which I didn't know until Wikipediaing it today. But yeah, dude, that, I don't know, maybe it's like something about like the movies that I've always watched too, the way like Scorsese like just like puts Rolling Stone songs into like amazing scenes with De Niro and Pesci, and maybe it's that like imagery that I'm associating it with. But when I hear it, it's my favorite riff. Yeah, it really is. Just it gets me going, man. Yeah, and it's got great energy too.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's like most of the ones on your list, they're more of like a groove settled in energy. It's not like the, and it's like this like you know down just like this like
some breathing
low
space,
down funky kind of energy.
Space.
Yeah, but it's got that like the groovy funk, which is the roll to rock and roll. You know, like that's the thing that makes people want to move and dance. You know.
Well, I think there's like a simplistic approach too. You know, I mean, obviously there's great musicianship in all of these songs, but the riff, you know, it's catchy and it's what brings you into the song. You know, it's what, you know, gets your attention to dive into the song more. You know, and I think
instrumental hook. You mean?
Yeah, I mean, just hearing that riff, like, yeah, I want to know what's behind the song. I want to hear more about "Can't You Hear Me Knocking." I want to hear the rest of the song because of that riff.
It sets the stage for us. Like, something's about to go down here, and I want to stick around to find out.
Exactly. So yeah, that's my number one, man.
Awesome. It's cool because it's like this defines how, it typifies how rock and roll, even though we're both talking about the same genre, quote unquote, and we're talking about rock, like we had different approaches to like what makes a song essential.
Yeah.
And I definitely agree very much with your list as well. It's like all of those songs, I'm like, yeah, that's got it. It's like our list kind of approach it from different angles, but it's still kind of poking at the same form in there of like what rock and roll is. And it's definitely an energy thing, but a guitar-based riff is a huge part of it.
Absolutely.
You know, music that it doesn't have like guitar riffs, I can't really call it rock.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard to imagine. I know people try to push the boundaries by saying like, well, this is rock or this is, but it's, to me, without a guitar really being present, it's hard for me to wrap my brain around something being called rock without that.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's a pretty important part.
Yeah.
I think that there's an energy that can be adapted, but yeah, I don't know if you can call it rock and roll. You know, although, you know, Little Richard, he did it with a piano pretty well.
True. Then I just shot myself in the foot. My number one didn't even have a guitar riff.
But yeah, I think, you know, he had a guitar player. You know, Jimi Hendrix was one.
Was he?
Yeah,
oh, that's right. He did play Little Richard. I remember that. Watching like the documentary where Little Richard is like, I don't know, maybe in like the late 70s or something, like after Hendrix died, in an interview, he's like, I tried to go see Jimmy after he got famous. They wanted me backstage. And I was like, why? What did I do to you? Because he didn't mind being freaky. Of course, I didn't mind being freaky either. I was freaky first, but it was like this whole thing. And they're like, you seem a little unhinged, but that's what you need to be in rock and roll, I suppose.
Yeah, then it was Jimmy James and the Flames.
And the Blue Flames, yeah. So, you know, these were our lists of what we consider quintessential rock songs for our approaches to it. And I think we agree we don't find a lot of that in bands these days. It's very hard to find. To me, it's hard to find like what's considered a rock band where I don't feel like I'm making a compromise. Like oftentimes I feel like I'm trying to like a band more than I really do, because it's like, well, they've got guitars and they've got, you know, riffs and some of the elements, but like there's nothing that doesn't have the same heart that I'm used to connecting with. So I'll make a little more of like exceptions. Well, yeah, well, it's good enough for what it is, but it feels compromised.
Right.
You know, it's hard to find bands that I don't feel that compromise with.
Yeah, I think for me, like kind of following that riff mentality from my 5 is, you know, that's kind of how I judge bands. And I think that's why I've kind of fallen into liking that like stoner rock genre and listening to that more than other things, is because there's still that like rock and roll riff element, you know, and a lot of the bands are instrumental or just have, you know, vocals to like carry them along in a sense. But yeah, I'm always for melody and riffs in rock and roll. And I don't know if we see that as much now. I feel like it's been watered down to where I don't know if it's like we're adjusting for the ADHD, you know, generations, or if people can't handle a song over 3 minutes and it has to be this quick thing, nothing can develop. Maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. But for me, I'm always going to follow that like riff, like something that catches my ear that's like, okay, like I want to hear more from this. There's not a lot out there anymore that really kind of pulls me in that direction.
I feel sometimes like, and when Dana was on, I talked a little bit about this, like sometimes I feel like my affinity for rock music is almost like the way people used to feel about, you know, jazz or like the crooners like Frank Sinatra and this and that, when like rock and roll came along. And suddenly that old, like, you had, you know, the big band, swing, Benny Goodman things, you had like the jazz stuff, and you had like the crooners, and like that was like the stuff. Like that was the pop music. And then this new rock and roll thing came along, and almost like there was a divide to where like that got phased out pretty quickly, and it was like the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Elvis, Chuck Berry, you know, this and that, you know, this whole new guard came in, and people who were like into that other music, jazz, crooners, this and that, it was almost like a limited audience, where jazz still exists now, and you go to a specific weird little jazz club to see that. But it's almost like a relic. And I wonder, like, is that what rock and roll is now? Is it become a relic to hip-hop?
Or is it, like, just our taste is becoming a relic?
Yeah, know? I wonder. I'm like,
is like our rock and roll taste not, like, in the main market anymore because it's developed to something different? You know, whether we like it or not, it's developed into something, right? We can agree on that. Like, what maybe not rock and roll, but I guess music in general has shifted to something that we're like, I don't really like that, but a lot of people do.
Yeah.
Is it just our mentality of like...
That's what I wonder. Am I like that old man who just like, can't dig the new stuff?
Get off my lawn. You know?
Hey, you, get off of my lawn.
We're pulling our...
Don't bring that bass and that 808 around.
Like your trap beats. Your 64th
but it's
note.
Truly, like you can't really... It's like even things that are considered like modern rock or indie, like they have some like hip-hop sort of beat element in there.
Yeah.
Where it's like no one's playing like as a band. It's almost like you have to have some of that in there to make it relevant. Maybe that's just how things have changed, and it's maybe we're dinosaurs. But what gives me hope is the recent show we saw.
Yes.
Which was All Them Witches and Plague Vendor.
Oh yeah.
Holla. Plague Vendor. We had heard of All Them Witches. I think you told me about a song you heard. It was on a Spotify playlist, just random songs. This thing came up, and you're like, "This is a great song." You came over one night and showed me, "Here, check this song. Don't Give Me No Coffee," I think is what it was. Yeah. And All Them Witches. And then we got into All Them Witches and like listening to them and digging it. And then I was like looking online for tickets and found that they're gonna be coming to New York. Oh, but it's gonna be like $100 a ticket, and it's a stadium thing because they're opening for Mastodon and Primus. I'm like, well, I'd like to see Mastodon and Primus, but I really want to see All Them Witches. Yeah. Like, that would be cool to see them as well, but I don't want to spend this much to sit in a stadium, like, very far away. I want to see them up close. Oh, I guess it's not the time to see them, you know? And then, you know, a few months back, saw another tour coming around, and they're playing in a actual smaller venue in New York. Was it Bowery
Ballroom? Yeah.
Bowery Ballroom, and said, $18? That's more my speed. Not that I don't think they deserve the money, but I didn't want to spend $100 to see them very far away and distant. You know, like you're paying for Primus and Mastodon tickets at that point, and I wanted to see the opening band.
Yeah, I mean, I love Primus and Mastodon so much.
Yeah, I would have seen them too, but
but you know, I understand what you're saying. Like, we were into All Them Witches at that point.
Yeah.
And we really wanted like an intimate experience.
Club experience.
Yeah. Where you can just see them. And, you know, obviously they had an opener that turned out to be a great band that I've begun to follow heavily in Plague Vendor.
Yeah, I really did.
We got a chance to meet those guys after the show.
Yeah, and they were very cool. And
awesome
hopefully
guys,
maybe we'll like take this segment out and put it up to like review their show, because it was awesome.
It was.
And it was one of these things where I had seen the name on Facebook because our good friend Joe Russo, his band Witch Hair, was playing a show with band. Plague Vendor, and I had seen that the show being promoted. I couldn't go to it, scheduling conflicts, but I saw the name, and then when I looked at the All Them Witches tickets, I'm like, Plague Vendor, I know that name. Oh, Joe played a show with them with Witch Hair. Like, awesome. Like, okay, and there was like that personal connection there. And then when we were listening to their songs, on Spotify in preparation for the show, I know I was, and we both were checking them out, and it's like, this is pretty good. To me, it was like that high energy, frenetic rock and roll. He's got this cool like scream voice where it's almost like that black metal type like edge to the voice.
It was high energy. When we got to the show,
it's like dancey too. And we were in the pit.
Yeah, first time I moshed since I was like 18 and
smashing around. But the front man, he had a good stage presence.
Absolutely.
He was dressed well, looked the part, was dancing around.
He had the moves.
Yeah, had the move. The band was engaged. They were putting on a show. There was an involvement there. There was that back and forth energy that was, to me, like, that's what rock and roll is. And this band was doing it. Plague Vendor was doing that for me that night. And they set the tone almost for that night, because
absolutely,
even when All Them Witches came out, you could tell people were in that, like, energetic mood. Yeah. And there was, All Them Witches have more space in their songs. There's more, melodic things going on, and almost like jam kind of breaks, but then they have that like hard energy in there too. So it was like a nice expansion. Yes, the riffage. So it was a nice expansion on, like, Plague Vendor was a little more straight ahead. I wouldn't say punk, but some of that energy was in there.
Absolutely.
Some elements of like Nine Inch Nails sounding stuff in there, but still rock and roll.
At the drive-in.
Yeah. At the drive-in. Definitely. And then All Them Witches like took a bit of that, but then they also they were expanding on that because they have a more varied palette with their songs, you know. And that was a very important show for us, I think. We really both like, while we were there, like, I'm so glad we came here.
Yeah. It was definitely, it felt good to see like so many people out there supporting a band and two bands that are contributing to rock and roll.
Yeah.
Like two true rock and roll bands. Like, it's not dead. It's there. You just got to look for it.
Right.
You got to search a little harder maybe than you used to. It's not in your face, but there's also a cool element to that,
Yeah.
You can kind of have your own niche, like your own separate, I don't know, out of the status
mainstream,
quo, yeah.
But I guess, in a way, rock and roll kind of always has existed in that realm.
Yeah.
If you were to look at, like, the top 40, music, top 40 songs from any decade, there's not actually a whole lot of rock and roll bands that are in there. It's almost like the exception to the rule.
Right.
Even when it was like probably in the mid to late 60s was like the golden age of rock and roll, where there might have been more of them in there, but a lot of the ones that were in the charts weren't really like, I'm still interested, or like, was that, if you look at the top 40 charts for like each year, there's not a whole lot of rock and roll up in there. There's a lot of like lame pop imitation things going on in there.
Yeah.
And even if you consider in the 90s, which was like a big resurgence, who was at the top of the charts? You had like Michael Jackson and Paula Abdul and Garth Brooks, and then like Nirvana came out of nowhere.
Maybe a little Alanis Morissette in there,
Well, that was a little bit later.
Yeah.
But like they were like the dark horse, like nobody ever expected this thing to work, and suddenly they knocked the king of pop out of the top. It wasn't like they were doing competitive dance music in the same way. It's just like happened. So rock and roll has always been an underdog, I think.
Yeah. I think, I guess, certain elements of rock and roll, like certain bands, did get to a bigger place, and I don't know if that's like ever gonna happen again.
No, we're not gonna have the 80s again. We're not gonna have the
I just don't like
again.
The Black Keys. Like, take them for example, right? Like, they're, I guess, what you would consider like a mainstream rock and roll band.
Yeah.
And they're not even like, taking over. Kids aren't listening to it.
No.
Like, it's not like, kids are going to listen to the trap, rap, whatever.
It's like people who already liked rock are going to like them.
Yeah.
If you didn't like rock before.
And people who like rock and liked their earlier stuff and followed them for years are probably falling off of liking them because they're grasping at straws, in my opinion. But
well, it did very much change. I remember hearing their first albums in college. It was this very like gritty blues thing, and they were covering like the Sonics and stuff, like "Have Love Will Travel," and then it's like,
well, I think we see that downfall
really
a lot, with like Kings of Leon, and I don't know if they just hit a point where like they really like the money and they've never seen that much money, and they can, I feel like they develop. I think for Kings of Leon, at least, they moved into playing arenas, opening up for U2, and felt that, and then you go back to the studio and you go, all right, we have to change our writing style a bit if we're going to be playing for an arena.
Yeah.
And how do you adapt to that? And I think it does. I think that is the moment where you see these bands change from your organic, like, rock and roll, like, creative, different sounding kind of stuff that you loved and you were drawn to, change, because that doesn't transfer to an arena. But the thing is, I think it does. I just don't think that, I don't know what the influence is there, why it
well, there's
it
a bigger
changes.
audience, so there's a different spectrum of people who are there. Probably a lot of people who are going to it because it's the thing to do, not because they're like really a huge fan of the band, like, oh, it's a big concert, let's go to this. And then also, when you have that big of a space, the energy is not as immediate.
Right.
When you're right up close. But if a band's like being frenetic and like chaotic, like in a stadium, it's like it doesn't translate. It's almost like bigger, more drawn out sounds translate to that bigger group. So I can see what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that that's
audience.
I don't know. It seems like a common thread in how bands kind of just fall off. And that's the point where I reach. And I'm like, I don't like this album.
You stopped doing what I was interested in.
Why'd you do this? And it's like, oh, you're playing for 50,000 people.
Yeah.
And you have to have a big sound. I get it,
Yeah, I mean, I guess the same thing happened with Metallica. People were all into them. They're the thrash rock, and then the Black Album came out, and like, what, you're doing power ballads? So close, no matter how far. It's like, my sister wants to borrow my Metallica album. What happened?
Yeah.
This isn't Kill 'Em All. This isn't Ride the Lightning. But then again, it's like, well, we did 4 or 5 albums of that thrash rock.
And I think that's where
people started getting bored when we were doing these like 17 time changes in one song that we're all interested in. Like the audience is like, yeah, like where's the song?
I think it's cool that like I've hit a point now where there was at one point I just wouldn't listen to them. Like I wouldn't listen to Kingsley. I wouldn't listen to Black Keys because I was like, I hate what they've done. I want to disown them.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, no, they gave me like some really good albums that like shaped me as not only a musician, but like as a person. There's a lot of memories attached to those songs. And I think it's important to not just like, throw away all that stuff. Like,
yeah. And to be realistic, Kings of Leon to have 4 really solid albums, you're done. Like, you can do whatever you want at that point. Like, you know how hard it is to write 4 solid albums like that? Like, come on.
I also wonder about, like, you ever think about if these bands will ever, like, get involved in, like, the reunions in, like, 20 years? Do you think we'll be sitting here at, like, age 50 going, the Black Keys are reuniting for a show? Like,
made for Netflix
I can't
movie.
picture that.
Yeah.
Like, it would seem much more awkward than, like, it does now with, like, Aerosmith going on tour.
Yeah,
Rolling
or
Stones.
Van Halen or Def Leppard or...
Like... Yeah, I just can't picture
Rainbow and Richie Blackmore.
Like Kings of Leon, like reuniting. Like, no, you can't picture that, right? Like,
no, it doesn't seem real.
Playing Sex on Fire.
Yeah. He's gonna be like balls, like a gut, and like.
Sometimes I think about that. I'm like, I don't think that's ever.
I really wish he changed those lyrics. Like, if it was "You Set Me on Fire," it would have been so much better. Because it's just a little too like, oh, your sex is on fire. It's like, I get it. Probably seemed a good idea at the time. But like,
it's like an STD.
You set me on fire. Like, that would have like worked just as well. And not been as like a little bit like, eh. But that song to me is like up there with Tom Petty's Free Falling in terms of like a verse chorus that really expands, in that way and like fills out, There's very few songs that like capture that like dynamic of like expanding out for the chorus. That's a big chorus.
Yeah, and that's the point where they were hitting their arenas, and that's the song that they needed to play.
Yeah.
But that's also when I lost interest in it.
Right when they got big. So, all right. So that was our rap about rock and roll and what it means. And hopefully there's more bands coming around like All Them Witches and Plague Vendor that are going to bring that energy out. I feel like there's, I don't know, maybe some kind of like turning of the tides that could be, could happen because of the fact that it's sort of been, like, rock and roll has been kind of uncool for a long time. But you start seeing the icons of it coming around in pop culture where it's like, I was just out visiting my brother in LA and I saw people walking around on the streets with like cut off Metallica t-shirts that were clearly like teenagers who didn't listen to Metallica. It was like almost like a pop culture thing of like having that logo was like something cool and edgy.
I feel like kind of weird sometimes when I'm wearing like a Grateful Dead t-shirt now, like now like the John Mayer movement's out there, and I love John Mayer. I think he's an incredible guitar player, and I don't hate what he's doing with Dead and Company, but like sometimes I feel like, are they judging me? Like I'm just like wearing this for like a stylistic point,
right?
Like, no, I really like the Dead, man. Like, like I really like this band. Like, yeah, I often think that though. So you saw a lot of that out in LA? Yeah,
I just think that like that the rock and roll aesthetic is becoming like hip again. It's almost like bell bottoms. Like they went out in the 70s and like kind of came back in the 90s. Yeah, in the late 90s, early 2000s. So it's like maybe rock and roll will come back into fashion again.
Maybe this is what we need.
Because it's been like out of the picture for so long that it almost seems fresh again. To where there's, I would imagine, a generation of the young teenagers now probably haven't seen too many live rock and roll band shows to almost be like punk rock again all of a sudden. Like, this is crazy. These four people are doing this and it's chaotic and like fun. Like,
I think we're gonna find too, like, as technology grows and like people are like, tied into their phones and the computers and staying at home a lot more, watching Netflix and not going out, like I don't think like many people, obviously, like there's like the Coachellas that are like,
people get their costumes on for the day.
And
I'm a hippie chick for the weekend.
Exactly, and that's just like mind-boggling to me, like why someone would ever even want to go to that. But I think it's a good thing that it's falling out of fashion again to like be like to like rock and roll, to like a band. Maybe that kid on the bus who's listening to All Them Witches, like, and is discarded from all the friends, like, and I think that is good. I think we need more of that, and I think if there's bands out there that are speaking to people like that, then we might see it catch on to where it would captivate like Nirvana did. Or
it's always kind of been a place for misfits in a way. In rock and roll, Absolutely. It's like the outcasts of society. There's always going to be a smaller amount of what's popular in general,
right?
So it's like, you consider even in the 70s, disco was like the thing, but there were still rock and roll bands that were going on,
And adapted with it.
Yeah.
Rod Stewart and,
Kiss.
Yeah.
I was made for loving you. Even the Stones, with Missy.
Oh, yeah. Rod Stewart, If You Think I'm Sexy.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
he's always gone with the trends,
very disco, Yeah, I mean, that's a poor example.
I want to consider Rod Stewart as some sort of like, a stronghold of
was
moral.
Good, but.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite singers of all time. Won't deny that, but
yeah,
he's kind of goes with the trends. I think I wouldn't consider him necessarily a pioneer of much.
Horrible example.
So. Hopefully, there's going to be some new resurgence of rock and roll. I would like that.
Yeah.
If not, we'll just kind of hide in our dusky little rock and roll world like the jazz heads do and pretend like it's still cool. I don't know.
Yeah. If you got bands that you want us to listen to,
send us
stuff.
Suggestions. Tell us
I think
we should listen to. Who's going to blow our minds.
We're working on like some new ideas for the podcast in the future. We're thinking about having like a call-in kind of thing, where like we can take some voicemails from people and like, answer questions and that kind of thing. We'll just engage more with
more interaction with whoever's listening.
We have some cool things planned for the summer. Definitely want to stick around with us. We're definitely
We want to do some like live acoustic things up in the bar and kind of do some like, little showcases for local artists, some of the people who have been on here.
Yeah.
We're giving you the background of the local people and the artists that we like and people coming on, hearing about them. And then there's going to be from there some,
a little more performing. And you've kind of seen
bringing
that.
the music to people.
Yeah. In the past few episodes you've seen, we've had our guests perform.
Yeah.
And that's going to keep building. And just stick with us,
Stick around. We promise things will get great.
Yes.
You'll be glad you did. We're gonna bring the rock and roll energy straight to your ears and eyes wherever you are.
Sell out. We're gonna sell out arenas.
Making
and you're gonna
big
hate
songs
us.
and choruses that don't mean anything, and put our
You're gonna be like, I remember when
and
the Next Stage podcast was cool, man. Before they sold out, had all these ads on here.
Coming soon will be the Next Stage podcast board game that you can play.
Oh yeah.
Make sure you wear your Beatles wig while you're playing it. And on that note, rock and roll, we hope, is here to stay. And we hope to hear from you about new bands we should be getting into. And we hope to bring you music that you find inspiring through this platform, focusing our local artists, because those are the people we know, they're our friends, and that's who we think should get a little more spotlight. So we're going to bring those people to you as we have been. And please communicate with us. Let us know who you think we should hear, who we should have on,
local
who we
bands
should talk
too.
to.
If you're going out tonight to see a show and you love that show and you found a new band, send us that band. We're going out tonight to check out a band.
Yes.
It's what you should do.
Support your local music.
Scene.
Because if you don't, you have no right to complain about the state of music.
Boom.
We love you all. Thanks for listening to Next Stage Podcast. Rock and roll.
Peace.